Here's Chris Maher, host of FFM93 Live.
All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to episode 13 of FFM93 Live. The Flyers are 1-0, and a lot of good things from last night's game. Contract extension also for Travis Sanheim before the game. Jim Iacovone is going to be joining me in just a handful of minutes here. Again, a lot of good stuff from last night's game overall. As for last night's game, again, a lot of good things. The Flyers win 5-2, and just in general, right, there was a good vibe. A lot of people there. I think a lot more than everybody expected. Again, I feel like for most of Flyers fans, it felt like that was kind of relieving a little bit to see a game like that. But let's bring in Jim now. Let me pull this up. What's up, Jim? How are you, man?
Hey, Chris, doing good, man. Thanks for having me. How are you, dude?
Yeah, dude, I'm good, man. Thanks for hopping on. So yeah, I was just mentioning last night's game. A lot of good things. Flyers win 5-2 against New Jersey. Travis connecting with a pair, Morgan Frost with a pair, one of them being an empty netter. Carter Hart looked pretty good after not, finishing up really any of the games in the preseason. He didn't play any. Obviously, was hurt a little bit. The only unfortunate thing, I guess you could say, with this is Owen Tippett being injured, and more of no Atkinson, no Ristolainen, and now they're down another winger. But before we get into the injury talk, what did you kind of take away from last night's 5-2 win?
They were fun. They were fun to watch, right? Yeah. Like, you were there for games last year. I mean, we all went through that. You felt like what you were watching, which was a very boring product. They were seemed like they were just going through the motions kind of thing. If they'd go down a goal or two, the game was over, right? Or maybe they'd push back for 5-10 minutes at some point, and that was it. Last night, excuse me, so let me just get the negative part out of the way, and it's really not even that much of a negative. They gave up they had 4 penalties in the first period alone. I don't think they had a penalty after that, actually. I'm looking at 8 penalty minutes here. They had 4 penalties in the first period. They gave up 3 power plays, and they gave up 1 power play goal. So, yeah, they got scored on, but overall, the penalties didn't burn them. And I think one of them was a holding, one was interference, and I don't recall. I think the other one was a boarding for Owen Tippett. So, the penalties that they were taking, I think they were taking because they were being aggressive, which is fine. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Not that I don't remember seeing a penalty and I'm like, oh, that's a bad penalty. That's a lazy penalty, right? Mm-hmm. So they were fun to watch for me. If you look at the team stats here on NHL.com, you're going to see 37 shots for the Devils, only 25 for the Flyers. You're going to see face-off percentage 61 Devils, 39 Flyers. But it didn't seem like that when you were watching them. The Flyers, they played tough. They were hard to play against, which is the message that we've heard all offseason from John Tortorella. He wants the team to be tough to play against, and they were. Right? I'm looking at 28 blocked shots. 28 blocked shots, Chris. Provorov had more than Provorov had 10 by himself. The Devils had 9 as a team.
Yeah.
Right? The epitome of playing tough, being hard to play against is blocking shots and not letting up on the opponent, hitting the opponent. Ivan Provorov is the perfect example of how to play tough. 10 blocked shots, 5 hits, 2 assists last night. Played like a 1D. I could continue to go down the list here, but it's your show, and I'm going to give you the reins.
No, dude, for sure. I 100% agree with you. I felt like a lot of, it's weird. Like everything that we kind of complained about throughout the offseason, whether it was goaltending or goal scoring or say the power play or the penalty kill or whatever it was, right? Everything went well last night. They scored 5 goals. They had a power play goal. The penalty kill was good, and the goaltending was good. And when you and again, I know it's one game, but it's just kind of funny how that stuff like that plays out. I think the one thing I took away last night was, especially on the penalty kill, and I love that you brought that up first, because the way that they have defended at the blue line, on the penalty kill has been perfect. I mean, they attack as soon as the Devil got in the zone. The only time it broke down was the goal, and it was a play where Braun kind of pinched and Holtz was kind of right there. Can't really give a guy like that much time, and unfortunately, that slips through Hart. Now,
Right. Good point.
most of the time,
Go ahead,
you're expecting. I don't really think a lot of us were expecting a lights out game from Hart. He didn't play any of the games in the preseason. He was coming off of an injury too. So, him giving up a couple softies, I don't really have an issue about. As for, Provorov and D'Angelo, I thought were great.
Yeah.
It was a complete 180 from the first preseason game they played together. It felt like watching them last night felt like they played an entire season together. Like that was genuinely how it felt. I did want to bring up one of the calls here too before we add a little bit more, but I think this will kind of add to what we're talking to as well.
Okay.
All right, reviewing game one. If John Tortorella had a checklist coming into the game of things that he probably wanted to see, I think he would have marked off a lot of boxes last night. There was a lot of good that went on. I mean, you saw the contribution of the young kids, Morgan Frost, Lazinski, Allison. Or defensively, I thought they did a good job until the very end, pretty much keeping New Jersey on the outside, giving Carter Hart a lot of clean looks with no traffic in front of him to make saves. And Hart himself played well down the stretch. Now, the 2 goals he gave up were both garbage, but he made big saves at big times. And all in all, it was a good effort. I mean, you saw energy, intensity early. The only negative was Owen Tippett's injury. You hope it's nothing serious. But a solid win for the Flyers, and hopefully they can get another one on Saturday.
Everything Sean said right there was perfect. I mean, it wasn't. Again, it's literally everything that we were pretty much kind of hoping for from the first game, right? I mean, it was they scored. The power play ended up generating a goal. Again, the penalty kill was pretty good. And again, overall, like he said, the young guy stepped up, and I think again, this year everybody is going to give them no credit or anything like that. It's just going to be all negative, and it's going to be, oh, well, they're going to be the worst team in the league, right? This whole thing. And I thought last night was a good step in the direction, for them to kind of shut some people up. Again, it's the first game, but still, I think it was a good way to kind of open the season.
It's okay to enjoy things as a Flyers fan. So let me just say this, because I get it, right? The offseason was not what everybody wanted, and it's almost like fans can't wait to voice their displeasure, which I understand. But last night was a time to be positive. It was a chance to enjoy a win, and a fun win. And so what I saw that I don't really understand, because we all know, we've all seen where the Flyers are projected to finish, right? They're projected to finish bottom 3, bottom 5. So when people want to say, oh, big deal, it was only New Jersey. Well, what? The Flyers are a projected bottom 3 team.
And isn't New Jersey supposed to be better this year?
Right. Every offseason, New Jersey wins the offseason, and all we hear is, oh, look what New Jersey's doing. They're going to be so much better than the Flyers. And they should be, with guys like Jack Hughes. Hughes didn't play yesterday. Dougie Hamilton. They're gifted the second pick again. Right, Palat. I mean, the Flyers, people are picking them to finish in the basement. So I'm not gonna accept that. Oh, it was only New Jersey, because they did what you're supposed to do against bad teams. They beat them by multiple goals, right? It wasn't a 2-1 stink fest or a game where they just snuck away with the win. They controlled that game. Until the third period, where they kind of started turtling it in a little bit, bunkering it up, and New Jersey kind of ran away with the shot lead a little bit, because it was like 30-26 at one point. And or 30-25 shots, and New Jersey kind of ran away with it towards the end. They were trying to get 2 goals, of course. But the Flyers looked good. They played well against a bad team, which is what you want to see. If they would have lost, what would have been the narrative then? You know what I mean? Be happy. Just enjoy the win.
No,
Good things
dude.
happened last night.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's completely fair. I mean, kind of going off the shots, like everything, and that was the thing. Like they gave up a lot of shots, but more of it was when New Jersey scored the second goal later on from when Severson scored and then the end of the third. And then also in the last couple of minutes in the second, it was really all Devils. Outside of that, the Flyers controlled the second period.
Yeah.
One thing, an area that they were not good at in the preseason and all of last year, really the last two seasons in general. Second period just have not been good for them. And overall, I thought the second period was great. I mean, you get 2 goals in 23 seconds. You pretty much dominated it for the most part with zone time, entries, getting into the zone. I mean, again, it was just pretty much everything that you kind of wanted out of the first game of the year. I mean, if I'm being honest, as for the attendance, I thought it was going to be a little less packed than what it was. It was pretty damn close to a sellout. I think I looked on NHL on the app, which would be NHL.com. I think it said 19,107 out of like 19,500. It didn't look that filled. I definitely did see some open seats. I think that number goes off of tickets sold, but even still, it's definitely important to have a home opener like that, especially where you win. I mean, last year, again, if we're going back to last year, and I hate to do it because I really just want to forget it, but you can't. And when you go back to last year, you look at that home opener, it was sold out. It was a good game. They ended up losing off of a comeback. But, outside of that, that was really one of the only few games was like, hey, they might have lost, but I kind of felt good about it. You know what I mean? Right. And last night was like, it was probably, and that year, last year, that game was probably one of the better games of the season, even though they still lost in a shootout. But like this one felt like one of their best games in 2 years. But again, kind of going off that, there was some news before the game, which came around, I believe, maybe like 5:45, 6 o'clock. I was driving to the game when I got the email. Travis Sanheim signed an 8-year extension at 6.25, pretty much the same thing that Mackenzie Weegar signed for in Calgary. And Sanheim is probably going to set the market for this offseason. There's a couple other defensemen. I know Severson's a UFA after this year. There are other defensemen, but Sanheim was one of the better defensemen that was a UFA going into 2023-24. Jim, overall, what are your thoughts on the Sanheim deal? And I know some people don't like it, but I was just curious what you think.
If you would have asked me 2 years ago if I liked this deal for Sanheim, I would have said no way. But he looked good last season. He looked like he could be worth this kind of money. And in our group, in the HW network, we talk about what's the cap going to look like in 2-3 years? A lot. And 6.25 for Travis Sanheim in 2 to 3 years is going to look pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
And they got him locked up for 8, which is a long time. How old is Sanheim? 26, 27?
He's 26.
26. So they got him till he's 34. They have him through his prime. He looks like he's coming into his own as an NHL player. It takes defensemen a little bit longer. So I don't think that we've seen the best of Travis Sanheim yet. Hopefully we get to see it this year. I know playing alongside Ristolainen has, I think, helped allow him to play his game. And yeah, I'm giving a little bit of credit to Ristolainen there. I'm not saying he owes Risto anything, but I think, the way Ristolainen has changed his game to kind of fit Sanheim's has allowed Sanheim to be more comfortable playing as himself. Do you know what I mean there? He doesn't have to cater to his defenseman. He has a defense partner that's catering to his style, and it's allowing Sanheim to succeed and excel. So I'm okay with the deal. That's a lot. That's a lot of term for a player that has been on a bad team for a while. But I'm not going to sit here and poo-poo it. It's perfectly fine.
Right.
What do you think?
I like it. I mean, look, I wasn't able to do any kind of recap or anything of it. So this is kind of the first time I'm really talking about it. Again, I like it. I mean, for what it is, again, I like Sanheim. I've never really had an issue with him. I think at that value and what the cap is projected to go up to in the next handful of years, by the time he's 28, 29, it's supposed to be around like 90 to 95 million. So that might look like a steal. I kind of view it like Farabee if I'm being honest with you, how they kind of locked up Farabee. They got him at a good price. I feel like if say the Flyers were to sign him to another 2 or 3 year deal again, then he's like, 29, 30. He might want a little bit more money because he's still kind of in those couple years of his prime there, at least for what defensemen kind of go at. So again, I like that they locked him up long term. Again, I don't want to, worry too much about 8 years down the road because we have no idea what the team's going to look like by then. He could be traded. You know what I mean? Like so many different things could happen before that contract even ends. So again, and look, I think what I like the most about it is they have most of their defense locked up. You have D'Angelo's on the shortest one, but he's on a 2-year deal, and most likely in I guess you could say, if you're looking at it in a positive way, it would be nice to probably have him locked up after that. Hopefully that's what happens, right? And this can be the pairing that Provorov and D'Angelo can kind of work together, and that can be, I guess you could say, the first pairing in the future. Again, I always felt like if Sanheim had another year like he did last year, he was gonna probably want like 7 or 7.5 on the open market at least. That's kind of where I saw it, because look, I think of it this way. He's gone the past handful of years. He's taken a little bit of money, or I shouldn't say a little bit of money, but a little bit of a raise each year, around 2.5 to 2 million. And if you're looking at what this past year was, he probably could have bet on himself a little bit. I don't know if he would have had any thoughts with the open market. I don't know if that was really towards his mind. I know when me and you were in the locker room, I believe last Sunday, I think you asked Sanheim a similar question about that. He didn't really seem like he was too worried about it. Which I thought was a good thing. And also Chuck hinted at that a couple weeks before when he mentioned all the injuries with Ellis and everything else. And I felt like that kind of got overlooked. So again, look, for me, I like it because again, it's adding, well, not really adding, but I guess it's kind of one of the bigger, well, realistically for next offseason, it's their biggest free agent name. You have Hart coming up soon, but he's not next year. And outside of that, it wasn't really anybody else that you can say that's like, oh, they got to get that guy done. Because if you don't, right, say they don't sign Sanheim, that's a huge hole. And clearly, and I think what's ironic about this is, everybody's like, oh, well, don't sign Sanheim because we have Cam York, and then York doesn't even make the team. So that's kind of where like I guess you could say the GM smartness kind of comes in, obviously, because they ended up locking up Sanheim and York isn't really ready yet. So that's kind of the thing. Like, that's where I was at. It's like, you can't just not sign a guy because you have somebody else, because we've seen this before. That mentality to me is banking. Like, you're banking on so many things going right. And I've talked about this many times, and the Flyers have made mistakes in that area, not just, for this year, in recent years. Phil Myers is the biggest one. I mean, from expecting him to come in and just play first pair defense, that doesn't work out. So we were going to redo that with Cam York and just put him into the second pair spot, just because, like, that's kind of where I was at. Was like, all right, well, let's slow this down a little bit. Let's not make a harsh decision just because we have somebody there. Let's see what we can do with this. And for me, I'm fine with it. I really have no issues. Again, at 6.25, hoping the cap goes up, I think that's going to be pretty good value for Sanheim over the next handful of years. Can't hear you.
Sorry about that.
You're good.
Yeah, so they're going to have two very solid pairs from here on out. And,
Yeah.
We saw last night, Provorov and D'Angelo very well could be a legitimate top pairing. Like, a lot of us were questioning, is Provorov Jacob Slavin? Well, it's only been one game, but Provorov, he could be better than Jacob Slavin. Very good defenseman.
Yeah.
It's
definitely possible, dude. I mean, with the way Provorov carries himself, it's not a crazy idea.
No, it's not. And he was the better prospect and everything. There's been a lot of stuff with Provorov the last year or so, and I don't know if it's come out, but the locker, from what I've heard and what's come out more recently, the locker room hasn't exactly been right. And you've seen Provorov. We all know how he is. He's like a machine. It's a business for him. It's work. He's all business. He doesn't really play around in the locker room kind of thing. It's like you never see clips of him having fun or being one of the guys. Like he busts his ass, he trains, he does all that stuff. He wants to win. And, you hear reports and stuff, the locker room is sort of like a country club type thing. I think Cam Atkinson said something to the tune of that last night. You hear Keith Yandel saying something on I think it was Spit and Chicklets about how, it was a lot of fun last season.
Yeah.
A lot of fun. The team stunk. How can it be a lot of fun? And so what I think we could see this year is a guy like Tortorella. There's a quote. I think it's a rising tide lifts all boats or ships, right? He's going to have everybody playing up to and training and practicing to Ivan Provorov's standard.
Yeah.
Right. And what happens is when that happens, everyone's practicing and training that way, you're going to be better by default, and it looks like Provorov is re-engaged. If that's the right word, it looks like he wants to play well here. Like he's re-motivated.
I kind of took, no, I 100% agree with you. I look at it as like a huge, like if Provorov were, I don't know. I mean, look, I look at it like just like a huge weight off his shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's kind of like a crane just picked up a boulder off his back.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just like he finally,
like help is here. Help is on the way. It's here.
Like it's like, we can finally like get everybody on the same standard as me. Like, how he always worked. And I talked about that with Yuri Wallach on Nitty Gritty show the other night. I 100% agree. I feel like, he can probably, and again, going off that too, I love Bradshaw's comment about that a couple weeks ago. He said like he wants Provorov to kind of smile more, and I think that's kind of what you're getting at too. Mm-hmm. Like that's
you need a mix. You do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, I love that how Provorov is like that. I mean, dude, he was an animal last night. It was great. Mm-hmm. 10 block shots. I think I can't remember who the devil was. It might have been Palat, but he slammed somebody into the corner, just like pretty much said F you and just took him into the corner. Yeah. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it felt like they were playing with a little bit of
an edge.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, look, it felt like for most of that game, they were playing pretty well. I wanted to bring up this comment here from Eric Wisniewski. He says, I'm interested to see 100% healthy Flyers with the exception of Ellis. Would you bring back Wayne Simmons and make him captain and just play fourth line and penalty kill time captain for 1 year? I know a lot of people have talked about this. I figured we'd hint on it since we got the comment. Jim, go ahead. I'll let you go first.
So what was the first part of that? The first
I'll put it back on my bed.
What would it be like? Oh yeah. So great point, because the Flyers looked pretty good last night and they were missing their 1C. Obviously they're missing Ryan Ellis. They were missing their second pair defenseman in Rasmus Ristolainen and Cam Atkinson, who I believe was the leading goal scorer last year. Right?
And Owen Tippett for 2 periods.
And they played well. So I don't like to do the what ifs, and but it's kind of like, well, what if Sean Couturier played last night? What if Rasmus Ristolainen played last night? If Cam Atkinson played last night? Like that was a shorthanded hockey club last night. Like they were, and it wasn't just dude. It wasn't bottom line guys either. It was top players, right? Like think about it.
Tanner Legzinski made that pass and he looked like he was in the NHL for like 7 years.
Dude, he's very, very, him, he's very underrated. A diamond in the rough kind of player. Fans are going to love this kid, I think. He's finally healthy. Dude, I don't want to get too far off topic, but I could talk about Legzinski all day, man. This is a character guy on this club. Him and Delorier, they're two parts of the identity line. I think that's what Torts called them. They're the identity line, and it's because they work. They are the heart and soul of the roster. You're going to see it. Delorier is another guy I could talk about, but I want to stay on topic here. The second part here from Eric is, would you bring back Wayne Simmons, make him captain? I would not. Loved Wayne Simmons, but let's keep turning the page here. Let's keep moving forward. And I would like to see him win a cup. Let him go somewhere where he's got a chance to win a cup. I'm sure he'll catch on somewhere. I don't know, maybe Tampa Bay will pick him up along the way. He doesn't have to, be on the team the full season, because I think he still has a cap hit, right? I don't want to be wrong here, but I believe it's over $1 million, if not $1 million.
I think so. I can double check.
Right. So you have to consider that. Hang on. Let me go to the Leafs. But long story short, I wouldn't bring Simmons back. I love the guy, and don't get me wrong, I would love to see him as a Flyer.
Yeah.
But $900K he's making.
Yeah, he's on a 10-team modified no trade too.
Yeah, let him go to a team that's going to win a cup. Maybe Colorado will pick him up during sometime during the season or something.
Yeah, something like that, right? I mean, again, for me with Simmons, it's like, okay, he was really good here. Everybody loved him. He was one of the heart and soul guys on this team. But that was with Drew and Gostisbehere and Voracek and everybody and Braden Shen and everybody that's not here anymore.
Yeah.
Let's just move on.
Yep.
Torts already said they're not naming a captain. Like, they don't, you know what I mean? Like, for that to even really be brought up again, just it doesn't make much sense to me. He already said they're pretty much not going to be going out of captain until at least 15 or 20 games or maybe the whole season. We'll see. But again, I feel like overall, and the other thing is too on that, we already have an abundance of guys and we have no money. Like, the contracts have gone down, like, since Fedotov, the whole situation the Flyers told that contract, and now that would make it 48 of 50. So he would be taken off and then re-added for 2023-24. John Randall Avon, him getting sent down to the OHL takes that off, so that's 47 of 50. And then the Flyers put Linus Sandin today on waivers for the purpose of terminating his contract. So that's 46 of 50. So they could do it for a contract spot, but they wouldn't have any of the money to do it unless you freed up $900,000. But again, it just in general doesn't make much sense. And for all we know, Simmons could have the Flyers on his modified no trade. He may not want to come back here. Right. So there's that too. And we'll really never know because they like to keep that stuff private. Yeah. But go ahead, were you going to say something?
No. Okay. No, I wasn't. You have to think too, like, imagine going through the training camp you just went to. They bring back Simmons and you name him captain. It's not like you said, it's not the same team as when Simmons was here. The guys on the team would be like, what the hell, pretty much.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Why is Wayne Simmons captain? He didn't go through training camp with us.
Yeah. I mean, the only guys that have played with him on this team are Carter Hart, Lawton, and Couturier. And Provorov too. Mm-hmm. But like outside of that, that's pretty much it. Sanheim. But again, still a handful of guys.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't really make much sense, just even money wise and things. And also the other thing is too, he's not as good of a player as he was. No. He's battled injury, and realistically, since the 17-18 season, where I think he had like 8 or 9 injuries that year, from groin to like so many different things, he never really was the same player again. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, again, last night's game was good. The Flyers now tomorrow, Vancouver at 4:00. Canucks are going to be a tough test. They ended up losing the other night against Edmonton. Jim, are we good on time? You still good for?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, all the time you need. Yeah.
Okay. Again, Vancouver tomorrow. They ended up losing that game the other night, 4-5-3. I think it was. Yeah, 5-3 with an empty netter. McDavid with the hat trick. Mm-hmm. They were up 3-0. They probably should have won that game and closed it out. Jim, I don't know if you saw much of it. I did catch the end, but
I did watch a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, look, overall, I think Vancouver's a pretty solid team. Again, I think it's going to be a test, but really, who isn't going to be a test for the Flyers this year? I mean, we're going to be the underdog in just about every game, so let's just kind of take that for what it is. No Atkinson, it seems like, no Ristolainen, and no Tippett. Flyers still have to call up somebody, is what I don't understand why nobody's. I put this out there and I feel like nobody's understanding it. They still have 11 forwards, and they only have 60. They sent down Ronnie Atherton, they called up Jackson Cates, and Tippett got hurt. So that would mean that Cates is probably coming in for Tippett, but who's coming in for Hodgson who got put on waivers? They'd have to call up somebody. So it would have to be either Forster, maybe Ratcliffe. I don't know if they'll do that. We'll see.
That's interesting.
Team was put on yesterday. Like, there's so many different things. So Vancouver tomorrow. Do you got any thoughts for that one?
Oh, it's going to be fun, right? Vancouver's a lot better than New Jersey, I think. They lost to Edmonton, but Edmonton's, I think, a cup contender this year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Evander Kane plays very well with Connor McDavid. So, it's not like they lost to like the Devils or something. They lost to a juggernaut of a team, and I mean they went to the conference finals last year. And having said that, you're going up against a JT Miller, Elias Pettersson, a Bo Horvat, a Brock Besser, in my opinion, a Norris candidate this year, and Quinn Hughes. Ekman Larson still decent. Tanner Pearson can put the puck in the net. Connor Garland. I mean, the list goes on here a little bit. And then they got kids like Podkolzin and Thatcher Demko, one of the better goalies in the NHL. So
who cocould be an underrated Vezina candidate too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's going to be a test. It's I'm not sure Vancouver's as physical, or we'll see if they're as tough as the Flyers. We'll see. Can that work against a team like Vancouver? You're right. It's a test, and it's not the Devils because, like we said, I mean, a win is a win, but it was the Devils, right? It's not to diminish what the Flyers did, because if they would have lost, I don't think anybody would have been surprised. So give them the credit for the win. But the Canucks are better than New Jersey. It'll be a test, and Vancouver's looking for their first win. Nobody wants to start 0-2. Having said that, it's a long flight. I'm sure they're here already waiting for tomorrow's game.
Today,
yeah. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe the Flyers can build off the energy. Maybe they have a little bit of momentum from last night. I would hope that they would.
Yeah.
How do you see it going? What do you think?
I don't know. I'm trying to steer away from predictions this year. I mean, it's so tough because majority of the time we're wrong anyway. But for tomorrow, I feel like more of what I'm hoping for is kind of the similar things. Play better in Eurozone. I thought the penalty kill, again, if that can kind of continue, don't take as many penalties in the first period, though. I felt like they kind of took their flow out of the game, and they were able to kind of get that back in the second, especially with the bang bang goals there. Score first too. I think that would be nice if they're able to get at least like 1 or 2 up on Vancouver early, because they are a team that, when they can score, they can really pounce on you with the talent that they have. We saw that the other night with them against Edmonton. But obviously they can kind of blow it too, right? So we'll see. Again, it's early in the year. I feel like it's more like the filling out process for all these teams. And these rosters probably won't stick anyway for majority of the league. So look, we'll see what happens. I'm hoping for another game for Konechny like that with the 2 goals would be sweet. I don't know if he'll get 2 again, but hoping he can kind of continue that, because again, and going back to last game as well against the Devils, if there were 2 guys that I think we all wanted to at least show some offense early, and especially in the first game, it was Konechny and Frost. I mean, they're the 2 guys that get harped on all the time, whether it's missing the net or just the little things, or not scoring goals, whatever it is, right? They get picked apart constantly. I mean, really, who doesn't on this roster? But those are 2 guys that you kind of notice a lot, especially on Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff. I thought that was a kind of a I guess you could say like not like a stepping stone in the right direction, but definitely a way that they know that they can play, and they know that wasn't their full lineup either. So I think if they can kind of continue that swagger, I think one thing that I like to go back to a lot, and you might call me nuts because he was my former favorite player, but Voracek, there was a game early in the 1920 season when he wasn't playing well, and he scored the game winner against Vancouver. The Flyers won the game 2-1, and this was the game post game where Jake said, I kind of got that FU swagger back. And that's kind of what I look at with this year, is like, can we get that FU swagger back? And I think some of that can be carried into the next game, especially from last night. I thought last night was a good way to start the season. And I think if you can add that into tomorrow against a definitely a tougher opponent for sure. I don't know who Vancouver is going to put in net. I would assume it's Demko. I don't know who they play next or what their schedule is like. If they have a game the next night, probably not. But I would assume they're probably on the East Coast to open the air if they're here so early. So we'll see. But again, I'm not really concerned. I think what I'm a little, I guess you could say, nervous about is the Florida trip. It would be nice if they could win both of these opening home games and then kind of go out to Florida, maybe split with Tampa and Florida early in the month. Because again, we've talked about it before, off camera too, about how tough the month of October is. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. So, Jim, thanks so much for doing this, dude. Always a pleasure talking with you. Sure, we'll be seeing each other soon. And anything you want to mention that you're doing over at High and Wide?
Oh, man, thanks for having me on. First of all, I feel like I should be thanking you. It's always a good time hanging out with you, Chris. As far as High and Wide, no, I mean, we're doing shows once a week. Our next show will be Sunday. We just had Julie Robenheimer on. I'm sure you know her. She's up in the press row with us. Awesome episode. Make sure you guys check that out. We're putting out articles every other day on hwhockey.net. Drunk Gritty. DG has a betting thing he started up called DG Bets. Give that a shot. Let him, if he's doing well, let him know. If he's doing bad, feel free to let him know. You know, if he's losing your money, don't be shy. But I think he's doing well so far. I've made a couple bucks off of some of his suggestions. So if you guys are in the betting, I think he uses DraftKings. I'm pretty sure. So give that a shot. Give the Time I Skates boys a shout, and Pod Street Bullies some love too. And I think that's pretty much all we got going on, man.
Cool, dude. Well, yeah, I'll see you soon. Again, follow Jim at Jim Ike HW. That's JIMIKEHW. I can't believe I didn't butcher that. And yeah, thanks, dude. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks.
I'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care, Chris.
See you, man. All right, that was Jim Iacovone or Iacovone. I always butcher his name. Really good. Always good stuff with Jim. This is from Derek. Guessing they call it McEwen. Forrester, probably not a one-game call-up guy. That's fair. I think that's definitely fair. As for McEwen, that is the guy that I did forget when I was mentioning that. That could be brought up. We'll see what happens, right? I think... Again, going for tomorrow, it's a tougher opponent in Vancouver, and I wanted to kind of add to that because, again, the Canucks they're kind of in a weird spot. Like I feel like they've been in this cycle of, I guess you could say, mediocrity, very similar to the Flyers, where like they're not, like 1 year they're a contender, 1 year they're not. Like they're kind of just in the mix and they're missing the playoffs, making the playoffs. Right? It's very similar, but they have a core group of guys and some really good players. I just don't think they've been able to kind of put it all together. Eric Wisniewski with a good question here. Would Hart play next game? Probably. Again, the Flyers, I can't believe I'm forgetting this right now. I feel like a moron, but the schedule coming up, you have, yeah, that's right, Saturday and then a back-to-back on Tuesday and Wednesday. So I would assume Urson gets one of those games, probably Hart against Tampa, Urson against Florida. That would be my guess. Since, again, no Sandstrom and still kind of looking for some other things with the injuries, right? We talked about Tippett. We talked about Atkinson. We talked about Ristolainen. And not having those guys is brutal. I mean, it stinks. And it's not a way you want to open your season. And they did that last year. It sucks because we don't have as many players. And again, it's going off what Jim said a little bit too. You know, you add those guys in and, you know, maybe the Flyers are a little bit better than what we're expecting. Again, we don't really know yet. So we'll see what happens. Derek, I mean, I selfishly want to see Forrester. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. You know, I look, I like Forrester. I didn't really like him that much in the preseason. I thought he was okay. Again, like most guys, he was okay, some good moments, some bad. I mean, that was pretty much the theme of the preseason was some good moments, some bad, but we have to kind of add in these areas, yada, yada, yada. Flyer Bob. Oh, yeah, does Vancouver have torts? What do you mean? Like how they used to have torts for that 1 year? Jim Pine, that win really got me back into the Flyers. Oh, it's fair. It's definitely fair, dude. I mean, look. Everybody's going to take this way differently, or this year differently, I should say. A lot of different things. Look, everybody's going to have a different feeling, or I guess you could say a different opinion on the Flyers and kind of what they are as a team. I think it's definitely fair. I mean, look, I'm not going to harp on. I mean, look, I don't do this anyway, but I don't like when people are harping on other people for being positive. You can be positive, you can be negative. I think it's completely fair. I mean, look, everybody has a right to be whatever way they want to be about this team. I think it's fair that that win kind of gets you back into them. It was a good game. It was an energetic game. They played they played well. I mean, for most of it, they played really well. I mean, there were, again, some spurts of it weren't great, right? I mean, you had periods of play where the Flyers dominated, periods of play where New Jersey dominated. That's hockey. I mean, that's what it is. It's not going to be straight 60 all the time. Derek, Flyers have more defensive depth than Vancouver, even with the injuries. Wild card is how the lines match up. Can't get butchered by Miller, Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes. Agreed. I'd also add Besser to that mix because, again, if the Flyers get into penalty trouble, like I talked about, that power play will haunt you. And it did last year in the opener when the Flyers played against them. Now, when the Flyers went to Vancouver last year, 2 quick goals in the first period. And outside of that, Martin Jones pretty much stood on his head. The Flyers won that game 2-1. So they went 1-1 against Vancouver last year in some pretty close games, some good games. Hard to give up a couple softies in that one too. Again, going off of last year is it's not much, I guess you could say, you could take into it. So again, look, I think more of what I'm looking for tomorrow is just the same thing. I mean, there really isn't much of a change. It's only been one game. Try to continue what you did the first night. I mean, how much more different can you be? I mean, look, they don't have as many guys. I thought one guy who really underratedly I thought was good last night was Wade Allison. I thought he was good on the forecheck, obviously scored the goal. And that was the one thing I thought was good about that game too, was just the Flyers answered right back. But, Allison alone, again, I thought he had a strong game. From Allison's performance, it was get in, get the puck in, had some good plays cycling, had a couple of chances at the net, obviously scored. And again, just overall, I thought he had a solid game. Again, and a lot of guys were like that. The hope is, if Torts can work his magic and squeeze out about as much as possible, but also reach a new level for some of these guys, not as just like, squeeze out as much as you can, but make these guys better players. And I think that's something that not really many people are talking about, is like, how important it is for not just Torts, but other guys, and then they can kind of feed off of that. And I look, everybody's gonna, again, like I said, everybody's gonna have a different opinion. But again, I kind of look at this as there are things to build on, and I thought last night was a good step in the direction for a tone to set for this season. I mean, I know it's an 82 game year, and I know it's a long season, and there's going to be a lot of different things. They're going to battle adversity. They're going to have a losing streak. They're going to have a winning streak. There's going to be many different things like that. It's how it is every year. Look, I feel like if they get good individual performances like they did last night, I mentioned that with Jim, and Derek kind of hinted at that here too. Just want to see good individual performances by key guys. Really, wins and losses kind of optional. Exactly. And that's kind of where everybody's going to feel about this year, is you're going to want different things from different guys. And when you have players like Konechny who have a game like he did last night, the hope is that he can kind of continue that. I thought Konechny was great. I really thought that first line was good. The Lawton Hayes connecting line, very similar to how they played in 1920. Excuse me, just a lot of good things in general, right? Just the way that they played, the way that they got into the zone again, and the power play too was much better. And one thing I hinted at a couple weeks earlier at practice was connecting in the bumper. And I was curious if they would use it, and they did, and they scored on it. And I had the video up, and I put it up as well. Philly Ghost said, I like Zach McEwen's grit and heart and desire because those are qualities you cannot teach. But does he not find a spot on this roster? Well, he could be the guy that does get called up. So that's fair. I agree. I think grit, heart, and desire are two really – I think that's probably one of the best ways you could describe Zach McEwen. Just in general, right? I mean, talent-wise, when healthy, he probably doesn't make this team. But again, you have a guy that's very similar to him in Delorier. You have Legzinski, who had a solid game. Obviously, Hodgson did not play great last night. He was one guy I didn't really love. I thought he was okay. I'm not going to say he was bad, because it's the first game of the year, and it's like,
he didn't really play much outside of that. Especially in the regular season last year. Obviously played in the preseason, but in general, I like McEwen. I like McEwen a lot. I think he's a good player. I think he's a really good dude. He was great with us at the fan club meeting a couple weeks ago. Just in general, I really don't feel like he makes his team if they're completely healthy. And I feel like that's similar for a lot of other guys too. But again, in a pinch, I think it's fine. We'll see what happens. As for trying to hide this comment, Jim Pine says they may still suck this year, but enjoying the win for now. Definitely, I 100% agree with you. This one comes from my mom. I agree with McEwen. He played hard, and with Heartless season, can't say that. I did 100% fair, Mom. I 100% agree. We were talking about that earlier. Eric Wisniewski said, I missed it. How did you feel about Zamula? I felt he was all right. I thought Zamula was okay. Again, some good plays, some bad. Again, I didn't really, how would I describe it? I didn't really notice anything really too bad from anybody defensively. I thought the defense in general was good. I felt like a lot of what New Jersey was doing was outside. I mean, the Flyers did a really good job last night of clogging up the middle of the ice. The high danger areas were pretty much taken away. And if they were created, it was because the Devils made a couple good plays. You saw that one play. Hughes made the pass through D'Angelo and Provorov over. I believe he ended up finding Mercer for a quick shot. But outside of that, like, I thought the Flyers did a good job of defending the high areas, keeping everything to the outside. And Hart didn't really give up many rebounds. He pretty much swallowed everything that came towards him. Derek says connecting looks fantastic in the bumper between preseason and this last game. It looks like D'Angelo brings a lot of set plays into the offense. Agreed, dude. I think a lot of what Konechny was doing was just the simple, like, bumper presence that they haven't really had. And it wasn't even like, I felt like it, first of all, was it me, or did it kind of feel like the bumper spot last night just opened up because the Flyers had different, guys moving the puck. It wasn't just, it wasn't like Ghost, how, like, and again, I like Ghost running the power play, but he was always in the same spot. D'Angelo moves from, either side. And, you had Farabee on that as well because Tippett ended up getting hurt. So a bunch of different things were kind of going on. I really like connecting in the bumper. I'm completely fine with that. Derek, I credit towards, but they really tend to be there with D'Angelo on the ice instead of just by everyone. Yeah, I think that's completely fair. Flyer Bob, Konechny did some terrible giveaways, but he's scoring. Allison looks odd. I think that's fair too. I thought Konechny had a couple turnovers that were like, oh, here we go. Especially that one later in the second. Outside of that, though, I thought overall, he had a really solid game. Nothing really too crazy. Eric Wisniewski, he said, I saw a video of Torts talking about how much he likes Zamula and coaches sound like he's here to stay. I hope so. I mean, I don't mind Sealer in a pinch. In the long term, it's probably not ideal. And with Risto hurt, Sealer could have made it as the seventh defenseman. Again, they're home for 2 days, so we'll see what happens of we'll see what happens with just who goes on the road trip and whatnot, because hopefully we get some injury updates by then. Excuse me. But again, just in general, right? You're hoping for a continuation of Thursday's game for tomorrow. Just a lot of what they did was just smart hockey. And if Torts, again, can continue to squeeze out more and do all that stuff, I think the Flyers are going to be maybe not a good team, or I guess you could say maybe not a great team, but a good enough team. And look, we'll see what happens. It's a long season, obviously, but last night was a good night to build off of it. It was a good game. They played well. A lot of good things happened. But again, you're hoping for tomorrow to continue more of what you did Thursday. I mean, I know I've been repeating myself, but that's really what you want to do. I didn't really think much of it had to change. Again, I thought they did a good job. But I wanted to go back to the penalty kill because that's been good really throughout the entire start of the preseason. Just preseason in general, and then kind of going from that to the opening game last night. Just in general, really solid. Again, defended at the line well. I thought as the Devils kind of got in, the Flyers collapsed. Either it was Hayes or Lawton or whoever, Delorier, Noah Cates. I mean, Farabee was on the penalty kill too. Like, it didn't matter who it was. They were right there and they were right on him. The one time it opened up was the Holtz goal, and that was it. And, that's going to happen, right? When you have teams attacking with speed through the middle and you have crafty guys like that. Chris did not see the game last night, but what was your impressions by the play of Provorov? Dude, he was fantastic. He was fantastic. He was great. 10 block shots out of the team's 28. He was great. I mean, excuse me. From the way he played with D'Angelo, complete 180 from the preseason game where we saw them two together. I thought he was good thought he was good on zone entries when the other team was coming the other way. I thought Provorov did a good job stepping up, making those good plays. He was great in the corners. He had a couple plays where he just threw guys out of the way. He played he was like a machine. He was great. The pairing was good. They moved up the ice quick. I thought he was really good. I thought he was really good last night. I hope it's something they can kind of build off of. He was great. He had the 2 assists as well. He had the play to the net where Allison scored. Just a smart play, getting the puck to the net, ends up getting rewarded there for Allison, and they get the goal. But in general, he was fine. He was completely fine. I thought it was a really good game just from the pairing. Again, moving the puck up the ice, all that different stuff. I say, so to how late am I? I started at 8 o'clock tonight. A little bit different because, when I had Jim on, we were going to do normal time, but Jim wasn't able to do that then. And we ended up moving an answer because the Phillies were at 4:30 today, and they won today 9-1. And the Phillies now are 1 win away from the National League Championship Series. So that's awesome. Really, really good stuff there. Derek got back on Provorov. He says, answering that, for my opinion, Provorov was fantastic. Not his best offensive game despite the 2 assists, but his defensive was dominant. And his offense was good. Agreed. 100% agreed. I thought in general, the pair was fine. They moved the puck up the ice. They defended against the rush well. They were good in the corners. They just played smart. And I felt like they played like non-worrisome. Like they just went out and played. They didn't worry about anything else, whether it was, I don't know if it was like criticism or any of that stuff. Like, it doesn't matter what it was. If it was negativity, criticism, all that different stuff that's been going against Provorov, right? He just went out and played. And that's what you want to see from Provorov. Like, the good thing about this defense is they're all kind of in their core years. They're around that 25, 26, 27 range where they can all kind of grow together. So I think that's the good thing, and that's the good model in general. Again, I thought the pairing was good. As for Sanheim and Braun, I thought they were good too. Really nothing too bad from the defense. A couple breakdowns here and there, but the Devils kind of got inside. But outside of that, it was a good game, and in general, Isaiah Soda says the chemistry is developing between 100%. You can see it. I don't know if it'll be like Niskanen again, but it definitely could be up there. So we'll see. But again, thanks to everybody for joining in. I appreciate it. We got the Joel Farabee raffle tickets. Still, I have a bunch of those. If anybody wants those, that's through the Flyers fan club. It's an autographed replica military Flyers jersey signed by Joel Farabee, and that is through the Flyers fan club. The money will go to charity. The tickets are $5 each, or 3 for $10, and the drawing is December 20th. If anybody wants one, DM me on Twitter. And I am doing a giveaway for one of these shirts that I'm wearing. I do have an extra one. I put up a tweet earlier on my Twitter at Chris Maher. It's on the logo here on the side. You can put that you can enter that. The rules are to retweet the tweet that I put out, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and comment done when you are done. And then I'll do the drawing of the giveaway will be next week or not against. That'll be next week for next week's show. I'll be doing that live on here so everybody can kind of see that as well. So I want to end with this comment here from my mom. It would be really nice for them to start to win enough and at least get back to enjoying playing the game. I think that's great, because I think it's a smart comment too, because you kind of have to lighten up sometimes. And I think that's what Bradshaw was saying with Provorov. You kind of want him to smile a little bit. I thought that was a great comment for my mom. Yeah, that's it for today. Thank you guys so much for all the support. We'll be back next week, normal time, 3 o'clock. Phillies win 9-1, always great for that. Flyers win 5-2. Eagles are 5-0. A lot of good things in Philly sports right now. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Always appreciate the support. And I'll talk to you all again next week.